Hey folks, this is Kelani. The word on the street is that Battle for Azeroth might kick things up a gear or two when the next patch comes around. There's so much buzz about the rise of a Jara patch and what it could do for the game. It's one of Wowhead's most popular topics right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if a great many players are waiting for this patch to see if Battle for Azeroth is worth their time and money once again. But there's just one problem. We're not too sure when it's going to arrive. We have a few clues, and we can always look at previous patch cycles for some useful data to help make an educated guesstimation. Right now it doesn't look too great though, so let's have a chat about when patch 8.2 could hit live servers and why it might not be for quite a while yet. So the first thing that we always refer back to when it comes to these kinds of discussions is the 77-day rule. Pretty much every patch in Legion was 77 days or 11 weeks apart. That schedule ran like clockwork, and the dev team has said several times that it was more or less perfect, and if they can keep that going then we'll be in a good spot for sure. That hasn't really happened for Battle for Azeroth so far, but the patch cycles have been getting shorter. The last cycle was 13 weeks, so just 2 weeks shy of meeting that 11-week goal, if it is still part of their goals right now, so it's not too far off. 77 days from the release of patch 8.15 is May 28th, so that's a pretty good starting point for our guesstimation work here. If they're able to meet the 77-day pace, May 28th could be the release date of patch 8.2. But with how the previous patches have gone in BfA, I kind of doubt we'll see patch 8.2 that early. For comparison's sake, let's have a look at the two patches we've had so far in BfA. The game launched on August 14th and patch 8.1 released on December 11th. That gives us a 17-week gap between release and the first patch going live. Quite a long patch cycle that one, especially when you consider that the first patch in Legion was actually way faster than the 11-week standard. So quite a bit behind already, but what about 8.1 to 8.15? 8.1 released on December 11th, as we said, and 8.1.5 released on March 12th. That's a gap of 13 weeks, so that one was quite a bit faster for sure, but it was a minor 0.5 patch. I would expect 0.5 patches to take less time overall than the whole number patches, if anything, so to expect 8.2 to hit live servers 2 weeks faster than the only minor patch we've had so far might be asking for a little bit too much. So, if I'm throwing around all these doubts about the possibility of a 77-day patch cycle, why did I even bring it up in the first place? Because it's mentioned in-game. Patch 8.15 brought us quite a lot of content scattered around the place, which includes a new quest with Magni. This quest contains practically nothing, you can finish it in 5 minutes easily, and it wasn't really tied to any previous quest lines. So why was it randomly slotted into the game? Because it's a setup. This seemingly empty quest is going to be the foundation that a good chunk of the future of Battle for Azeroth is based upon. We relocate Mother to the heart of Azeroth to do some crazy Titan data mining to figure out just how messed up our planet is, and to try and figure out whether or not we can save it. Magni had us collect Azerite in the heart of Azeroth because it was the only thing he could think of to try to stem the flow of the planet's blood, but with Mother in the picture we might actually get some solid answers. But we'll have to wait on those answers for, and I quote, 77 cycles. Either that's a really cheeky nod to how organised and on time they were all throughout Legion, or 77 days is actually going to mean something this time around. I fully expect something to happen on May 28th, whether that ends up being another minor questline, the opening of a Titan facility, Magni bursting into flames, or the release date of patch 8.2. We have no idea, but it's still a pretty solid piece of information considering it's right there in the game. Something has to happen. I'm a little hesitant to immediately call this patch 8.2 release date though. Patch 8.2 is supposed to be a huge patch. We have 2 new zones, Nazjatar and Mechagon, that we know of, new questlines in both zones relating to breaking into Azara's palace and befriending the Mechanomes and overthrowing somebody else in a mega dungeon, and the Heart of Azeroth feature is being entirely revamped. This isn't a small patch by any stretch of the imagination, and it still hasn't appeared on the public test realms yet. I would imagine the largest patches would need more testing and therefore a longer PTR cycle. If the patch goes up on the PTR this Tuesday, which would be April 2nd, and the patch releases on May 28th, which matches up with the 77-day stuff, the PTR would only be up for 56 days, or 8 weeks. I guess that number doesn't really mean anything unless we have something to compare it to, so let's have a look at how long the 8.1 and 8.15 PTR cycles were. So, patch 8.1 went up onto the PTR on September 21st, and the patch released on live servers December 11th. That gives us a PTR cycle of 11 weeks and 4 days, quite a bit longer than our projected 8 weeks here, but what about 8.15? That went up onto the PTR January 8th and the patch went live on March 12th. That's actually a 9-week cycle, so having an 8-week cycle might not be too far-fetched. It's only a week shorter than 8.15's PTR cycle, but remember that 8.15 was a minor patch. I wouldn't expect minor patches to be shorter than major patches, although if you think about it, it would make a lot of sense to have the major patches in development alongside the minor patches because they shouldn't eat up as many resources. So in actuality, patch 8.2 might have already had a lot of time and effort pumped into it at this point, and a shorter PTR cycle might be viable if they're pretty far along in the development process. Either way, I would expect a bit longer of a PTR cycle to make sure everything is as polished as it can be before 8.2 hits live servers. Battle for Azeroth has had a bit of a bug problem whenever a patch goes live, so I wouldn't be surprised if Blizzard wanted to try and get back their gold standard polish by keeping it in PTR for a little bit longer. So we might see an 8-week PTR cycle, but I would expect something more like an 11-week PTR cycle. That seems more standard. Now this doesn't mean a great deal until the PTR actually gets updated with info for patch 8.2. So when could that happen? Honestly, I kind of expected it to happen already. I'm a little disappointed it hasn't. When a patch is released to live servers, the next patch usually pops up onto the PTR very shortly afterwards. But looking at the other BfA PTR updates, we might have another couple weeks to wait. Patch 8.1 went up onto the PTR just over 5 weeks after BfA was released. But if any patch deserves a little bit of leeway here, it's definitely the first one after the expansion itself launched, right? So what about patch 8.15? Well, patch 8.1 released on December 11th, and then 8.15 was put on the PTR January 8th. That's 4 weeks exactly. But to be fair, that also included the Christmas break. So both of our examples for BfA have some special circumstances here, but we can go back and look at Legion to see how they handled patches and PTR stuff back then. When patch 7.1 released, 7.15 went up onto the PTR 3 weeks afterwards. That might sound fast, but it actually gets faster. When 7.15 went live, patch 7.2 was up on the PTR just 9 days later. They were definitely on top of their game during Legion. After 7.2 went live, 7.25 popped up on the PTR 2 weeks after that, and after 7.25 went live, 7.3 was on the PTR just 2 weeks after that again. By most of these numbers, we should have seen patch 8.2 on the PTR already, so it definitely seems like things are moving along a little bit slower in Battle for Azeroth when compared to Legion. If patch 8.2 shows up on the PTR this next reset on April 2nd, that'll be 3 weeks after 8.15 launches. A little slow by Legion standards apparently, but actually kind of fast from what we've seen so far in Battle for Azeroth. The slowest we've seen so far is 5 weeks, which would put the PTR update on April 16th. And if you want to keep an 11-week cycle from that date, it puts the release of patch 8.2 on July 2nd. I think that's the very latest this patch could go live, but I would expect it to be a little bit sooner than that. We'll probably see the PTR very soon and have a 10 to 11 week PTR cycle for a release date sometime in mid-June. So what's this whole Magni thing going to be about then? Because unless they have a very quick PTR cycle, the 77 days thing isn't going to line up with patch 8.2 at all. Well, as I said before, it could be a timer for a major questline that introduces us to patch 8.2, similar to how we're going to be seeing some quests which introduce us to the Crucible of Storm stuff very soon, or it could just be the dev team poking fun at us for referencing the 77-day thing so often, or maybe even poking fun at themselves because they can't keep up with their clockwork Legion patch releases. We'll get a better idea of how this all pieces together when the patch actually appears on the public test realms. If it updates with bare bones 8.2 stuff, you know, maybe a map of the new zone and not much else, that would give me cause to worry a little and definitely expect a longer patch cycle. But if this patch goes live with both new zones fully fleshed out, all quest lines working and implemented, the Heart of Azeroth changes figured out and raid testing starting sometime after, then yeah, I could definitely see a shorter PTR cycle happen. It really does just depend on how far along they are right now, and we aren't going to get any information about that until we see the PTR for ourselves. So I would say May 28th is a very hopeful release date and would expect the patch to launch a little bit later than that, sometime in mid-June. Poking around these numbers is always fun for me, and it also kind of shows you how smooth everything was during Legion. I hope they can get back to that kind of schedule sometime. It worked so well. But that's it for this video. When do you think patch 8.2 will release? What do you think the 77 cycles will end up leading to? Will it be something huge? Or are we all just overthinking it a little bit? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.